descriptions and all that of the planet X, Nibiru, that it passed and causes its grief March and April.
Hey, welcome to my Spreaker channel. I'm James Munder, and I just was wanting to make my first Spreaker about pretty much what I've been researching for the past, 8 years, and that's some really bad news. In fact, I hope I'm wrong. It's not one of those things like, hey, you guys are gonna see, you guys will see when it happens, I'll be right. In fact, I hope that this doesn't happen, and people just think that I was crazy, because the more I look into it, the more that I see that this, whatever you want to call it, Nibiru, Planet 9, Planet X, Wormwood, whatever, it's definitely, and it's coinciding with people questioning what the hell space is, and, definitely we don't live on a globe, and I'm not saying that lightly, like, I was indoctrinated. I had a globe in my classroom. In the process of learning intensely. I mean, when I say learning, I mean learning how all these puzzle pieces fit together. And I actually think that a lot of people are doing the same thing. When people say the word conspiracy theorist, what they're really saying is they're truthers. They're people that just want the truth because we've been lied to. And the more you dig for truth, the more you find it. And you find out that we've been lied to by a lot of people and for a long time. And really quick on the Masons. I have family that are Masons, and I have friends that are Masons. And in fact, the Masonic orders, I believe, just like everything else, were co-opted, infiltrated, used as a networking tool to get basically the great work completed. What's the great work? The great work is basically the New World Order. It's basically the beast system. It's a one world government. I've seen, definitely in the past, 5 years, a very, very strong push. Like, they don't care that people know. It's very, very blatant, but, yeah, and then, like I said, everything starts fitting together. You start looking at the one world order, and, you could say they're devil worshippers and they're evil people all day long, but that doesn't really get you anywhere. And I always would ask myself, like, why are they doing this? I mean, obviously they want power, but it seems like it's actually more than that, because it's not absolute power. It's kind of like a tracking system to see where you are, and it just coincides too perfectly with this whatever you want to call it, with this technical revolution with computers, and how it all came about. I mean, our way of life, I mean, just 100 years ago, we were still, using horses, and 150 years ago, we were using like horses and living pretty much how people have lived their whole, people all over the world have lived, and that's, kind of not city life, cities and and big agro farming and slaughterhouse. If you were gonna eat meat, you raised it, and you had like your chickens and your cows, but usually you'd have your cows for your milks and your chickens for your eggs, and then you'd also slaughter them, but you had to do it yourself, and just this whole corporatization of everything. Anyway, I'm getting way off. I don't even know, because every road leads down a bit. It's every road is a freeway, so I can get lost quick. But no, what I was saying was this new world order is a son of a bitch. But there's something else behind it, and well, let's take this on a non-religious aspect first. It does actually come back to the religious, believe it or not, and that's on a completely real science, like looking at all the facts and looking at what's going on. It's so funny how real science, not the cult of science that is actually kind of infesting and taking over. And in fact, that's what I consider the big deception. But I was going to say that we're going on the non-religious side first. So if you look at, that's kind of hard to do it non-religious. I'll do it as non-religious as possible, but basically there's these people. If you're okay, I'm gonna come at it. Try to come at it at somebody just like, okay, like let's put all that down. Why are they doing all this? And I don't know exactly. It's hard to nail down exactly when, but they seem to have known, or they seem to have been working on this great work for a very long time, before Nibiru, but then you get into the fact that it's in the Bible. So, it's crazy how all this stuff fits together. That's the reason, I should have came out with some outline, because I'm going really all over the place, but it's crazy how it all fits together. Alright, so they're building all these underground, they're really building these underground cities, and then is there more land? Like once you find out that we're not on a ball, living on a sphere, and you start going, oh, well, all these big, the first New World Order push, which was Hitler, in our, in the past 100 years, basically he went down to, well, see, even I'm indoctrinated. They made a beeline to, Antarctica, you know what I mean? And something's going on there. I don't know, but the technology they had in the 40s, and I'm talking about the Germans, still would be classified and unknown for, 99.9% of the population today. And then Tesla, all this stuff, it's crazy how it all came about. Tesla around the 1900s, it's like everything we use is Tesla, and he came up with, and my question is these people were so greedy that they already had ways to communicate wirelessly, but since they had their projects like JP Morgan, and they're lined up to sell all this wire to all these cities and meter the electricity and all this, that they didn't put they built an infrastructure around an already outdated technology before it was even built. You know what I mean? Before they even laid the track down, the train was obsolete. That's a metaphor, but I mean, they knew that wireless electricity, wireless communication was not only possible, it was actually more easy, but they were greedy and they said, oh, well, people could, they wanted to have a control over them. And so it wasn't just about greed or profit, it was also control and power. And that's scary. But, you know, it's like it really comes back to there's two things that are working, and people are just the conduits. But anyway, I mean that's real. Whether you believe it or not, that's irrelevant. It's happening. That is reality. Now, as far as what I was gonna say, just in this podcast, was I was gonna focus on Nibiru, or Planet X, or Wormwood, whatever you want to call this thing. This, I don't know what to call it. It's it seems like it's a winged disc, but I could say you know, with some probability that the wings are dust. It's like iron oxide, and it is a disc or a planet. I don't know. But it's definitely coming closer, and this also coincides with, you know, finding out that we live in an electrical universe and gravity really doesn't exist. But that's for another podcast. Anyway, so all there really is electricity. Even magnetism is electricity. But let's just call I can't scare you off. I already threw Flat Earth and Nibiru at you. If I go that route, I'm likely to not have any followers. But let me try to explain this. It seems that we are and that's another thing. They seem to have taught us bullshit, and it's like, why would you do this? Why would you teach people the wrong information? Why would you keep this? Yeah, it's about control, but it's like, it's so, I guess it, and I'm not calling myself good, but I'm saying I can't put myself in that mindset. Like, it just doesn't make sense to me. It seems like, even, okay, you want to have control, great. Like, it really is small thinking. I mean, it's like, okay, you got control, but you have control of what? A bunch of dumb people because of you? They have you to thank for what? Dumbing them down, keeping them not like spiritually like away from God. They did everything they could to keep God away, keep information away, keep truth away. I mean, and then they complain about the world being overpopulated. I mean, it's like the people that are running shit, they might have a lot of money and they might have a lot of power, but really, I don't want to say IQ is small because it's not, but they're dumb in the way that really counts, in the biggest way possible, the where it really counts. They aren't thinking, you know what I mean? There's a way to have law and order and still thrive and have other people thrive. It's, you know, win-win. You know, it's not all that paradigm, that thinking, it has infected people now. People only think that to get ahead, somebody else needs to suffer. You know, and that's how it actually is in this world. But it doesn't have to be that way. But anyway, I said that this podcast would be about Nibiru. Yeah, it really does seem like it's coming. All the signs are there. Not only are they, I mean, from them, which is just liars, they're trying to say global warming, it's man-made, we're going to tax you. And I mean, of course, from their mindset, they're going to try to make a buck on everything. They're going to, and also some of that really leads me to believe that our money is only being propped up because they are creating what is basically an artificial scarcity of money, but it really is worth nothing and it is not scarce. But it's so hard to get in this society that they've created with all their this technology. And for instance, jobs now, it's like you work your ass off on the quote-unquote plantation. And by the way, slavery didn't end. It just was black people were also white people were merged in. And then every skin color. And you know what I mean? When black people were like, oh, well, you don't know what it's like to be slave. Yeah, we're all slaves, dude. The thing is they found out a more efficient way of slavery. Instead of having the slaves live on property you own, you get them to pay for property that you own to have and so you don't have to live with them. And it's slavery. It's still slavery. I mean, even if you buy a house, you're still paying property taxes. And depending on the house, I mean, or it's pretty much then the house is pretty much you're paying rent. So you're never owning property. And who the hell owns the goddamn land? I mean, who, it's not their land to own. Anyway, I said I'd say this on Nibiru. Like I said, everything leads you down another rabbit hole. And people use that term. It's not a rabbit hole. It's just another vein of this world, of this truth. But like I said, Nibiru is coming, and the scary part is that it leads. I want to talk about the third. What is it? The third secret of Fatima, yeah, or something like that. But it seems like when this thing really hits, it's going to be absolute hell on earth. Not only is like the air going to be poisoned, and water is going to be poisoned, and shit's going to be coming out of the sky, and earthquakes, and floods, and tsunamis, and God knows what, you know, it's going to be absolute hell. And so right now, I think a lot of people intuitively, whether they know it or not, whether they think they're just, a lot of people are out of work, but I see this like community that is almost led by God, and they're not, and a lot of them aren't even, in the beginning, I guess a lot of them weren't, but you know what? When you really talk to people about flat earth, that for some reason is the vein of truth that once that it was opened and people started seeing that, they started seeing the fallacies in science. It became very clear. It's like brainwashing is very weird. Like you could swear that you're not under it until you see how you're under it, and then you go, oh, and then it's like a magician's trick, you know? Once you show it and you know how it's done, every time you look at it, you're like, it's just like brainwashing. So when you're trying to either break out of your brainwashing, well, that's, sorry about that. When you're trying to break out of your brainwashing, or you're trying to convince other people they're under it, or they've been brainwashed and it's not their fault, but you're trying to teach them, you know, or at least show them something, it's pretty near impossible if they don't do some things. First of all, they need to acknowledge it. Second, they need to know who's doing it. And they need to know how it's done. That means turning off your TV, not listening to the media. It means doing your own research, and it means not being in the world as far as what the world props up for you to sit there and idolize. Don't sit there. I can't. I need to know about Kim Kardashian because girls know about Kim Kardashian and everything. And if I start talking to them about this, even, there are some cool girls, or a lot of cool girls now, that are starting to get really informed. And it's like, that really turns me on. Like a girl that I could talk real stuff about, and you know what I mean? Like, it's like, whoa. Anyway, wow. See how I can get going on talking about girls. This is Nibiru. This is like completely opposite. This is the complete opposite of girls. This is horrible. I don't even know if you would want to live through this, to be honest with you. So yeah, the way that I look at it is like, it's gonna happen. Yeah, you can prepare, if you have money to get off the coast. Like, I'm in a place where pretty much everybody in the world wants to be, Los Angeles, California, at the beach. I used to live in Hollywood. And before that, I went to film school in New York. When the towers came down, I was there. Real quick, just, history of me. But I grew up at the beach. And it's heaven on earth. And but when this thing pops off, people are like, oh, you're going to get wiped out. I think I'm not like a nihilist, but I think that I would probably want to go that way. And I don't have the money to go and get a place. I can't, I actually was trying to be honest with you. And, I got a van, and, it was just, I could live out of it, but the gas was so expensive, and, this new beast system, to be honest with you, I used to, I got shot, and then, I got addicted to, they prescribed me painkillers, and I got addicted to them, and, long story short, I got myself a habit, and, I got myself into some trouble with, those charges. Well, anyway, it wasn't charges for, anything violent or anything. It was, Oxycontin, but under this law, and I'm not saying either or, but it's basically when people run you nowadays, when you go to get a job, and a lot of old people don't know this because either they have a solid job and they've had it, they haven't like really hit the job scene nowadays. Nowadays, it is 3 or 4 interviews, and then if they decide to hire you, you then have an intense background check. And one of the things, actually a lot of things come up, depending on how long they run it. If you say you have a petty theft when you were, a kid in your 20s, 21 years old, that might stop you from getting a job. And it's not even that was a job at Neutrogena, but it wasn't that, wasn't like great money or anything, but it's like, anyway, and then I noticed that every job that I got, I would get the job, and then they would run this, quote unquote, now we're going to run a background check. And not until recently, because they would say, oh, something came up on your background, they weren't obligated to tell you. So they just said, oh, something came up, and And it would usually be for this drug charge or this, I have a drug charge and I have a petty theft from when I was this is almost 15 years ago. And so this has stopped me from getting, living. And people don't know that, and then once you can't provide for yourself, think about if you're still on these drugs. I just took a year in February 11th. But think about if you're still, oh my God, I'm drifting so off course. I can't believe it. But I'm just saying, it's just this crazy system. Anyway, so my point is I can't move. Okay, I tried it. The gas was too expensive. Even, what is it? About $3.50 a gallon now. This van that I lived in, it would take about $100 to fill it up, and you might get 100 miles, 150 miles on that tank. So, it just wouldn't work. And then, I don't know, but I didn't have time to. They came and they scooped my van and they stole it from me. They literally, we live in a police society. I got taken to jail. Why? Because I was driving from my friend's house at the beach, and I'm sober. I wasn't drinking or anything, and I got pulled over. And it seems like the police car. I actually know this for a fact that if you have a warrant, it notifies them if you're in the vicinity of the they have things on the back of the police car that scan your license plate, and it will come to them and it'll pull up that car under your DMV record that you're assigned to. If you're driving it and you have a warrant, it'll notify them. I know that for 100% fact. That's what it did, and I just got it that day. The warrant was for $40 that I didn't pay for a court fee that I took care of. Everything was taken care of, but for some reason I had a $40 court fee. But it was Friday night, and they don't deal with that. You have to go to court. So I got to stay in jail all weekend. And while I was in jail, my car got ticketed because I couldn't move it. And so anyway, long story short, the judge was like, okay, you stay in jail. $40 obviously was excused. And I got out, but I had, and they ended up giving me 3 tickets on my car. One was 2 tickets. One was an old ticket, because I didn't move it, and then when I came to it, I said, oh, it's already got a ticket, and I left it there. And then I left the ticket on there, just because I saw it from a distance, and I was like, ah. But then the next week, is when I was in jail. So, they ticketed me for not street sweeping. And then they also ticketed me for being there, if you're over for 5 days or something. Anyway, it was just some bullshit. So when I got out of jail, I came to moved my van right away, and there were 3 tickets, and I was like, oh my God. Anyway, and by the way, I don't have any way to pay this. I'm in jail because of a $40 fee, and as I'm talking, I'm getting pissed off. Anyway, my van was parked, and this was a couple months later. This whole time I've been going to job interviews, actually getting jobs, and then getting turned down once they find out. Because I'm actually going to court Monday. I took it all the way to a jury trial. In fact, I got a lawyer and paid her $3,000. I didn't pay her. My dad did. And she actually didn't do shit. She actually told me to take the DUI. Didn't do a damn thing.
And that's another thing I want to say.